We're talking today with Mary Kirby, who is the editor and founder of RunwayGirl Network. Mary, nice to talk with you again.
Nice to talk to you.
And let's talk about cabin automation, something that's increasingly of interest to me.
Yeah, what would you like to know?
Firstly, I'd like to know, we've seen the impact of electronic flight bag, how impactful that has been on the flight deck.
Yeah.
Airlines, probably 2/3 of the airlines in the world today are in the process of deploying EFBs. The remainder are trying to figure out how to deploy.
Yeah.
So there's no question that there's the impact of tablets particularly have had a huge positive impact on the deployment of EFBs, which previously, when the installed ones, the installed in the airplane is very expensive. This is much cheaper.
Sure.
Now we're seeing a growing interest in deploying tablets in the cabin.
Yeah.
What is your sense of how impactful this tablet technology will be in the cabin?
Well, it's incredibly impactful if you combine tablet with in-flight connectivity. So if you connect those tablets, it can be quite impactful. So for example, you have the ability to have real-time credit card transactions. That's something that is not really happening right now on a large scale. There are a couple carriers like Delta that is doing it, but by and large airlines are not transacting. So those point-of-sale devices are not transacting real time, and the result is that airlines are losing quite a significant amount of money because they're not transacting in real time. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars collectively the airline industry is losing because of this. So that's a basic number one.
Right. So one of the interesting statistics that I've come across is that in-flight sales credit card, I don't want to use the word fraud, but let's say for whatever reason, the number is around 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that that's a reasonable number?
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable number, and certain carriers obviously have some larger offenders than others, especially those that do a fair amount of business in duty-free. There are even some carriers, though, because they make so much money on their duty-free, particularly certain Asian operators, that once somebody tries to transact at a certain amount, say $400 or $500 worth, they're heading up to the cockpit and using cockpit comms to check those credit cards, which is outrageous if you think about it. Imagine using cards to check a credit card in 2013. It's madness.
Clearly, the buy on board function then is really depends on the deployment of connectivity.
It does, absolutely. And of course, for many, many years, there's been this discussion of, well, if you bring connectivity to your aircraft, you can then view your aircraft as a node on your network. But those conversations about the operational benefits of connectivity have been obscured by what it means for the passenger. Well, you can connect the passenger and you can do this and that, and the passenger can check their email and get on Facebook and everything else. Ultimately, passenger connectivity, the business model for that will be underpinned by the operational benefits. And real-time credit card transactions is just one. It's just the tip of the iceberg of what you're going to be able to do. Take it a step further. Now that you have real-time credit card transactions, take it one step further. Your aircraft is equipped, right? Now, imagine an immersive geo-entertainment solution on your in-flight entertainment. Imagine tying that geo-entertainment offering with your retail solution. And imagine allowing your passenger then to not only learn about their route in a kind of a deep immersive way, but also to buy various different items along the way, and to not only to make their reservations for their car rental or their restaurant on the other end, but also to tie the retail element in. This is jewelry from Guatemala and I'm en route to Guatemala. How fantastic, slide that card. Or even if the IFE system doesn't accommodate real time, have those transactions taking place, the information then goes right up to the flight attendant, she comes over to you and then does a real-time credit card transaction on her iPad or other tablet. So imagine just what you can do from an airline retail standpoint. Moreover, think about the heavy trolleys that airlines are carrying around and taking up space in the aisles. Why not get rid of those? Have a really, really interesting duty-free retail offering but it doesn't need to be on board. You don't need to carry that all around with you. So once you're connected, then you can start going down the path of now, how do we really monetize that connection?
Okay, so the buy on board argument is like pretty self-evident then. Let's talk about the other operational issues. I absolutely agree with you, because it seems to me that if we were to depend on passenger take-up of Wi-Fi and internet, the model's never going to work. An airline has to extract the value operationally itself and not depend on the passenger's credit card.
Well, I mean, and this is what I find so fascinating is that airlines in the know that. The likes of, for example, Norwegian Air Shuttle CEO admitted not so long ago that it's wonderful to be able to offer free in-flight Wi-Fi to passengers, but that really is secondary to the reason why they brought the Row 44 Ku-band connectivity system on board in the first place. Number one reason is operational benefits. Now, what are we talking about beyond the cabin, beyond what you can do with connected tablets and credit cards and immersive geo-entertainment, which is, by the way, what Norwegian is going to be doing on the 787 ultimately, is the type of retail product that I'm talking about. That's ultimately going to be on their IFE. But what can you do over and above that? Well, there's the obvious ones, as you mentioned earlier, the electronic flight bags. You connect those electronic flight bags, then you're giving real-time weather mapping to pilots, information that they don't have right now. Why is that important? Well, number one, you've got passengers that are connected that have better information than many of the pilots in the cockpit. It's some of the great irony right now of connected aircraft. Your passenger in 2A knows more than your pilot does. It's outrageous, right? So the operational benefits that you can glean from having that knowledge and making your way around weather systems, etc. Lufthansa has been doing it, as you and I both know. We saw a couple years ago an incredible demonstration from Lufthansa, and now they're rolling it out in a deeper way. So you can do that obviously in the cockpit. Real-time health monitoring. It's kind of a holy grail, right? It's been discussed for a long time, and yet it's a holy grail for some very good reasons, right? Real-time health monitoring, the likes of which Bombardier says it's going to bring to the C-Series. Being able to transmit data in real time to the ground so that they know when that aircraft hits the gate what that aircraft needs. The business aviation community is already exploiting connectivity in this way. Now, a lot of them don't talk, specifics, but they are starting to see, improvement in dispatch reliability, turnaround times. They're using connectivity in this way. If you've got a maintenance issue and you're able to have someone waiting for that aircraft with the part that they need, I mean, the turnaround time is amazing, and so they're seeing it. They're using it right now.
Okay, so let's connectivity I get. Let's talk about the flight attendant and the tablet in their hands.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of things that impact a flight attendant. For example, service recovery.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the documentation that they have to file.
Right.
For example, we've mentioned buy on board.
Yeah.
There are all the different things that flight attendants benefit from, which is this to me seems to be the new phase of deploying technology, and I think flight attendants have been ignored in this way in some sense.
Absolutely, and I think that if you can take the amount of hours that they're spending on this paperwork, the amount of hours that they're not being paid, right, to do this additional work, and if you can allow them to be doing this in flight over a connection and clear their slate rather than have to sit around for an extra hour at the end of the flight to complete this paperwork. Imagine what that means to the flight attendants, and imagine what that means to their quality of life. And also imagine what it means to the entire airline operation. It just streamlines everything. So it makes a tremendous amount of sense on so many levels. It's tremendous from the standpoint of personalizing the passenger experience, which we haven't even talked about. What you can do when you have, Joe six-pack in 16A, has had a difficult has had a difficult time on the ground. He's communicated, for example, via Twitter to let's say a Delta assist. He's had a problem, he's communicated this, Delta then alerts the crew on board, listen, can you go over and say, hey, listen, we understand, can we get you a drink? You can personalize the experience then.
Service recovery
in a way that hasn't been done before. the time is now. We don't have any more excuses. These connectivity systems now are being brought to aircraft.
The interesting thing you mentioned about service recovery. So if one, if we think about what that's worth, I'm not quite sure what the percentage of service recovery issues they are, but it's got to be less than, let's say, 1%. But if you're looking at a flight like, let's take Delta, 5,800 flights a month, 1.3 staggering amounts of millions of people a year that they fly. Even 1% or 0.5% of that volume of people are service recovery targets.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is the service recovery worth? It's $100, is it $200? But if you look at that impact, and as you point out, connectivity drives this because the technology enables. It's incredible what we should be getting out of this.
It all adds up, and then you add that to the money that you're saving from not having these fraudulent charges in flight, and it adds up very, very quickly. So it's more connectivity is definitely, and tablets work hand in hand. They work hand in hand, and the airlines that are wise are the ones that are adopting them now.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.